I have nothing witty to say.
It's time for Hollywood Grump.
Hey everybody, welcome to Hollywood Grump. I am the Grump, aka Jolly J, aka Sir Surly, aka Mr. Sunshine. Here on Hollywood Grump, we talk about everything from new and vintage gear, including testing and reviews, to surviving the business of Hollywood, to stuff that just yanks my ripcord. All through the lens of a man so irritated, I shoot pearls out of my ass. For all you gear nerds out there, today's episode is shot on the same lens as last time, mostly because this is a part 2 and I wanted a little bit of consistency. It's the Helios 77M-4. A really cool old Russian lens that I didn't really like at first, but it's kind of growing on me, and you can get one for a song. So if you can, nab one, test it out, see what it can do for yourself. Let me know in the comments below how you think this lens looks, and remember, the lens quality is pretty good. The host quality, not so much. So to continue on from part 1, which if you missed it, you should check that out. It deals completely with the personnel side of live action production. This episode will deal with the non-personnel side, and this is where the totals really start to add up. So settle in, get your pencils ready, and let's get right down to the yates of this. So we left off on part 1 with a total of about $58,000, which is on the conservative side of the cast and crew required for our make-believe spot. Now we're gonna move on to part 2, where we're gonna talk about...
Grump.
Who is that? What is that?
It's me, Mike. You were just talking to me?
Oh, hey man. It's my business partner from the East Coast, everyone. I'm kind of right in the middle of doing this.
We were right in the middle of a call and you go into your shtick?
Can we talk about it a little later?
We were literally in the middle of a creative call and you launch into the start of your show. This is weird. You've been alone too long. But now that we're at it, how about you let me take over the rest of the episode?
Okay, sure. If you want to grab the baton and take it the rest of the way in, I'm cool with that, sure.
No offense. And what is it about no offense that's always followed up by something that's offensive? I don't know. But I'm going to do it. No offense, but you suck at the business side of stuff.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say that I was a total
Well, I would say. So you were really good with the personnel. Well, you were pretty good with the personnel side of things. You got the numbers mostly right. I'm sure you're all proud of yourself. But why don't you let somebody who understands numbers and math and business finish the rest of this? Cool? One more thing. Since I'm going to do the heavy lifting here and really save your butt, I think we should change the name of the channel.
No, we can't change the name of the channel. Mike, I have tens of followers. It'll really be confusing.
Oh, yeah. No one's going to notice.
Well, what did you have in mind?
It's time for Hollywood Grump.
And the East Coast Pollyanna.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Hollywood Grump and the East Coast Pollyanna. My name is Mike, the East Coast Pollyanna, AKA, I need to work on the AKA. The East Coast part of this episode is shot on a Canon FL 55mm. This is the precursor to the Canon FD that everybody knows so much about. It's a little less expensive on eBay. You can pick it up anywhere from $30 to $60. In pretty good condition. If you like the way it looks, check it out. So let us know in the comments below what you think. And just know it doesn't pinch in the middle. My nose is just that big. But hey, at least I don't look like a potato. As the Grump said last episode, we used to work together at Discovery Channel, and we've worked together on a independent basis for, I guess, 7 years now. And by that, I mean he gloms on to everything I do and takes the credit. So, as the Grump said, last episode, well, 2 episodes ago, personnel side of our fictitious commercial shoot was right around $58,000. And he was pretty on the nose with most of those, minus casting. So $1,200 is what was quoted for casting in the last time. $1,200 basically gets you a casting director, and that's it. So you need to pay for audition space, you need to pay for postings, and this is just a single day of casting. So we have never gotten through a casting that's been under $2,500. So that's where we're going to end up putting this, but I'll break down the other components later on in the episode. So just for clarity, we're only talking about the cost associated with the shoot itself. This does not account for your creative. The creative is a separate fee. That's your fee. That's the money that you make. We'll cover that in a completely different episode. So let's start with pre-pro. As you know, we already covered the personnel costs with pre-pro. You also have additional costs. So you have the casting office, which is part of pre-pro, outside of the rate of your casting director. You have additional audition spaces if you're doing something specialized. So say for this one, we had a puppeteer or something. So that is a completely different process than you go through with your talent casting. And additionally, you have printing, you have meals, you have gas. For this one, we're saying it's adding up to $6,907, which isn't that bad. Like we said, this is a fairly simple shoot. The additional pre-pro costs are fairly minor to this. Now you get a bigger commercial shoot or multi-day shoot, and then these pre-pro costs really get a lot, especially if you're doing multiple locations. Next up, we need gear. We need something to shoot this with. As a production company, we own a lot of our own gear, but there's still a lot that you will need to rent. And for this purpose, we're going to rent everything, which is pretty standard. A lot of production companies don't own their own gear. We do a lot of docu-style work, so that necessitates owning our own gear. That makes us a lot more flexible. So let's break that down. So we need light rental. We have a studio space, but it doesn't come pre-lit. So lighting costs about $2,000. Then you have your G&E trucks. So this is all your light stands, your cables, dollies, dolly track, etc. So that comes to $1,695. So next we have camera, lenses, and tripod. This is a single camera shoot, and we rented a set of RE Ultra Prime lenses and a standard tripod. We also have a dolly, but that was included in our truck rental package. Total for that is $2,385. We have audio rental fee. So even though we've already paid for audio mixer, we have to pay for their gear too. So most audio people own their own kit and then they rent it to you as part of their fee, and that's standard. So in this case, it was $600. We have our DIT kit. So once again, the DIT has their personnel cost, but you also need to rent the cart. DIT kit, $600. On top of that, we have VTR, so that's your video playback. This is a fairly simple shoot. We're in a smaller space. We don't need to send a signal very far. So $1,000. If you get into something more complicated, so for instance, when we shot in desert and Moab and you have a much longer distance that you need to send your signal, then the VTR cost can really skyrocket. You have your scriptie or your script supervisor. Script supervisor is a very, very important person on set. And it's actually a hard position to fill. So you need somebody who's ultra focused on every shot. For this particular shoot, our script supervisor fell asleep in the middle of the shoot. That's not a good way to ever get hired again. So for script supervisor, it's basic thing. It's a laptop, it's timing device, and really fancy pencils. They're really not. So $150. It's not that much, but it's adding to the total. Total for gear, $8,430. So in the last episode, Grump mentioned kit rentals. Kit rentals is something that most experienced line producers hate. You just get basically a flat fee for a particular set of gear. Now, when you're talking about makeup, you always pay a kit rental fee because you're using those items up. But for everything else, have people list out item per item what you're getting. So A, they're not able to just hide money and overcharge, which does happen, but it also lets you better assess where your money went. So if you need to add something, that's going to go up. If you want to take something away, that kit fee goes down. A lot of times you'll have crafty kit rental too, and we'll talk about crafty a little bit later and how that differs from catering. Now you have location fees. In this instance, we rented a soundstage. So when renting a soundstage, you need to pay a lot of attention to what you're getting for the rack rate. Say if a soundstage is listed for $1,500 a day or whatever, you need to ask a lot of questions. You need to ask, does that include power? How long is that day? Does that include personnel, etc.? So we'll break out what this soundstage added on top, which is really, really standard. And like a lot of times they will break out power as a separate fee because some productions are going to use a whole lot more house power than others. And that's sort of a way of not overcharging some people and not undercharging. So stage rental for this is $1,750. That's a 10-hour day. So you're in and out in 10 hours. We want a little bit of overtime for this, so you'll get charged an hourly fee afterwards. Overtime was $581. We also had to pay for house power. You don't just get power for free. Now, there's some stages, especially some of the smaller ones, that include house power in their stage rental. For this one, it's a much larger operation, and they break that down. Or our power charge for this was $150. You have to pay for a stage manager. So it's $150 for a full day with somebody basically to watch so you don't burn the place down. Then, because this was LA, you had to pay for air conditioning. $500. Yeah, $500 for air conditioning. Yeah, it's a big, big space, but they definitely made a little money on that one. It is what it is. So now that magical day rate that you saw for $1,750, which seems like a great deal for a pretty great production facility, that cost is now $3,381, which as it goes is a pretty good rate. And they didn't really tack on extra things above that. A lot of stages will just nickel and dime you to death. There's a lot that you can add up, and that's why you need to pay particular attention to what you're getting and how much the add-ons will be. That may make what seemingly was a better rate for stage A, in the long run, stage B, with the higher initial price, may be lower in the long run. So have a conversation with the managers of the stage and see where you net out. Next, you have talent fees. So you have your base fee that you're paying for each cast member, but there's a lot on top of that. So you need to pay an agency fee, which is often around 25%. You have buyouts. So for this one, we want to buy it out in perpetuity. That's going to be up to an additional 50% of their day rate. Additionally, you have P&W, which is pension and welfare. This is workers' comp, payroll services, etc. And that can go anywhere from 15 to 22%. We're going to say about 15% for this. So now that base talent fee of $2,500 ends up costing us $3,250 once it's all said and done. And that's not a huge markup. You can often over double your talent fees depending on the casting agency and depending on the complexity. More notable talent is going to have a much higher buyout rate. People just starting out, it's a much lower one. So this is all something that can change per contract, per cast member. Now you have food. So one of the most important things on any shoot is to keep everybody happy and everybody fed. You don't chintz on catering and you don't chintz on craft services. For this one, we had 2 meals. So we had breakfast, hot breakfast. There was somebody cooking omelets, yada, yada, yada. And then we also had a hot lunch. A couple different options for all different dietary needs. Just keep people happy. Next, you have craft services, or crafty for short. This is somebody that just keeps everybody happy throughout the day. So they'll have a tray of different snacks, everything from fruit to candy. They'll also have pain medication, Band-Aids, whatever. Oftentimes, they'll also do hot food. So they'll pass trays around to make sure everybody's eating throughout the day. Because it's very easy to become ultra focused on your job and not drink, not eat, and at some point of the day, you pass out. So craft services make sure that doesn't happen. So like always, their supply budget is different than the personnel fee. So you have their day rate, probably an additional half day rate for them to go shop. Then you're renting tables, you're renting cookware, whatever. So it's a total of $3,250 for catering and craft services. Next, you have vanities. First, you have wardrobe rental. So for this, it's a pretty basic thing. It's simple. So it's business attire, etc. So wardrobe rental, $1,200. And sometimes for wardrobe, you have additional things like tables and chairs or clothing racks. You have kit rental for makeup. Now, as we talked about earlier, this is one of the areas where you always just get a standard kit rental because they'll need to replace makeup, brushes, etc. Total for vanities, $2,250. Next up, we have our art department. Outside of prop master, set designer, etc., you need to account for prop rentals and also purchases. Prop rental $1,177. This was a fairly limited budget for props because, once again, we went into a stage that was fully equipped, so we didn't need to do any set builds, just a little bit of mild propping. Then you have expendables. So expendables is everything from tape, glue, gator board, whatever to build the various elements of your set. That's $1,377. Total for our art department, remember again, this is outside of personnel, $2,554. Uh-oh. There was nobody on that phone, but I pretended that the client just called and we do need callbacks because their client says, we want to see them in a little bit of different action. So now we need to add on a callback. That's going to be an additional $1,500. Hard drives. If you want to leave the stage with your footage, you need something to put it on. So purchase hard drives and purchase brand new hard drives and very good quality hard drives, 2 of them. So you have redundancy, you're not relying on an old drive, you're not limited by speed. Your DIT is going to want great drives, especially for this shoot where we're color grading out of the camera. So the DIT is going to grade all the footage with metadata, so we have the raw and the graded, and it's all nicely color corrected on your drive. So when you go into edit, you're very close, and this actually saves you money when you're grading later. We had already decided on a color profile we wanted to use, so we did that. So good quality drives, $650. Additionally, you have petty cash. So petty cash is everything from coffee, last minute office supplies, you need to go out and buy extra gator board, whatever. You need to get more coffee. You need a bag of donuts. You need more coffee. Or if you need more coffee, you need to have a certain amount of petty cash. Additionally, you need hush money. Not so much for our case because we were shooting on a closed set. But say you're out shooting in a neighborhood, especially in LA, it's amazing that seeing a production crew suddenly spurs people to want to go do yard work, especially with leaf blowers and really loud lawnmowers. And then they'll be surprised when you come over and offer them money to shut up. Happens all the time. I don't think there's a shoot we've had outside in LA where we haven't had to pay people to just not make noise. The funniest shoot was we were doing a spot when we were back at Discovery. The entire shoot was MOS, so with no sound. We were only shooting picture. And the guy across the street, he just would not stop. He was running around his yard, banging on pots and pans. He got out his leaf blower, he got out his lawnmower, he called the police, even though the police were already there because you have to pay for police presence when you're shooting in a neighborhood in LA. That's part of the permitting. And at the end of the day, we let him know that we were shooting without sound, and he was very disappointed. Then you have, gas for PAs and other miscellaneous stuff. Petty cash in this case was $1,126, down to the nose. Lastly, you have expendables. So this is RAM board, diffusion, gaff tape, whatever. $736 for this shoot. So to recap this long episode, the end of part 1, starting with the Grump's total, $58,000. That's just for personnel. Everything we talked about today, stage rental, gear rental, kit rentals of various sorts, food, craft services, coffee, more coffee. You're gonna go through a lot of coffee. Total for today, $31,298. That's for everything we talked about today. And that does not include what we talked about last episode, obviously, because it's the lower number. One last element you got to pay for is P&W for all the crew. So this is workers' comp, this is payroll processing. A lot of things are going where you have to pay everybody on W-2, especially in California. So this is raising P&W even more. This can be a good and bad thing for freelancers. So that additional fee, $8,700. It's nothing to sneeze at. So total for everything. And remember, this is just shoot costs. So this is personnel from last week, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and everything we talked about today. Total for this shoot, just the shoot. This does not include your development of creative. It does not include post-production that we're going to talk about in another episode. $97,998 for a 30-second spot with a one-day shoot. Stuff really adds up when you do it right. A nationally airing commercial production, that's pretty cheap. Yeah, so now everybody's been paid. All is right with the world, right? No, you haven't been paid. There's a couple ways that the agency gets paid. A, with a markup. Average markup is between 15 and 18%. 15% sounds nice, $15,000 on a $100,000 job, right? Well, not exactly. That number will inevitably get cut down to single digits because you have unforeseen circumstances and other costs outside of the shoot that always narrow that down. So if you get away with making $10, consider yourself lucky, because a lot of times you will go into the red on shoots. As a production company, you're going to make money on creative development and post-production. The other way you can make a little money is if some of your crew come from internal staff. Say you're a freelance producer or whatever, you don't have that internal staff. As an agency, you do. So we have a staff executive producer. We have a staff associate producer. So those go into those crew fees. So you get to make kind of the extra markup on top of that, which is still fairly nominal. When they say there's really no money in production, that's what they're talking about. The markup is so low and it inevitably gets eaten to nothing. If you're doing a lot of shooting, that markup can add up over time and you can make money off of it. If you do few commercial shoots, you really have to hold on to the post-production. If you're called upon to do production-only shooting, that's just the shoot itself. You're not doing the creative development, you're not doing the post-production, your markup has to go up. So you actually make something. A lot of times you're given a specific budget and it's your responsibility to stick to it. You know, if a client gives you, say, 100 grand for this project, that's all you're gonna get. If you go over, that's kind of your fault, unless it's an additional ask. But your responsibility is to manage the budget. So as we said, this wasn't a complicated shoot. It was one location, it was one camera, it was few talent. It's a 30-second piece. Imagine how this compounds on some of these multi-city, multi-day commercial shoots. That's why they get so expensive. There's just so much involved and it really adds up. So when you see some of these commercials that have like 15 locations, they obviously had an unlimited budget. So thanks for suffering through this. I hope you learned something. You probably liked it better than a typical Grump episode. Maybe, or probably not.
Lastly, I want to thank the people that helped make this show possible. My good friends at The Garden Creative, thanks so much for your support, guys. My good friend Buzz Burbank for lending his golden throat to the project.
Thanks, JR.
The incredibly talented Billy Lincoln for letting me use his music in my videos. And my family.
Go to hell, your shit!
If you dig the show, please like and subscribe. Hope you enjoyed Hollywood Grump. Until next time, get the hell out of my house.